Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, How to Make Sure Your Brand is Dressed to the Nines. Just a couple things before I hand this over to our presenter today. This webinar will be around 35 or so minutes. There will be time at the end, as always, where we will do Q&A. So if you think of questions along the way, and I'm hoping that you guys think of lots of great questions, I'm sure you'll be inspired by the webinar we're about to watch. Go ahead and type those into the box that you see in your GoToWebinar window, and we will be happy to answer those at the end of the webinar. The question we get most on all our webinars is this being recorded? And the answer is yes, we are recording this. It'll be up on our recorded webinars page, which is at the Vertical Response website. Just click on resources once you get there, and you will find our recorded webinars. For our Pro Webinar series, we have created a hashtag, so if you want to follow along on Twitter, the hashtag is up on the screen right now. It is VRProWeb, and Derek is tweeting even as I speak.
Awesome.
So Derek, do you want to go ahead and introduce our wonderful presenter today?
I will. I'm so excited today. As I just told Jill a little while ago, we happen to have one of the nicest people in social media, and she has actually been at two wonderful brands. Right now she is at American Eagle Outfitters, and her name is Jessica Berlin. We call her Jess, but she goes by Jessica also. And she is the social media manager for American Eagle Outfitters, and you can find her at Jess Berlin on Twitter. And also, like Jill had just told you, we do have a hashtag. It is hashtag VRProWeb, and please follow that, or you can ask questions there also that we will be answering at the end.
Sure, feel free to tweet a question.
So let's get right into it. Jess, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
And you are in beautiful Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
I am in Pittsburgh, where it is still winter and 32 degrees.
Yes. Not like here in San Francisco. It's nice and
foggy. It isn't much nicer here.
So let's go over the agenda really quick, because we're going to roll through this, and we want to leave plenty of time for Jessica to tell us all her great information. We're going to learn a little bit about Jessica. We're going to get into kind of how she approaches social marketing, working with such a large brand like American Eagle. Then we're going to, what I thought was really interesting, is some of the ways that they integrate the brand into everything that they do and how they get the community involved in it. They do a lot of user-generated content. And Jessica's also going to talk about their great April Fool's campaign that they just ran. If you haven't seen that, you need to go and watch their videos because they are really awesome. And then we're going to, obviously, because of our audience, we're going to talk about, can these tactics that Jessica's going to talk about, can they be utilized for the small and medium-sized businesses that we deal with? Because that's what we always want to know is can these be taken from the more enterprise level and be brought down to the mom and pop shops. And then Jessica also is going to share with us any kind of tips and tricks that she has that she uses in her everyday business. And then we always have time for Q&A, and we'll have a resources page at the end. So let's just get into it, Jessica. Why don't you give us a little kind of background on you and where you've come from and how you got at American Eagle?
Sure. So I am the social media manager here at American Eagle Outfitters, where I work on two brands, American Eagle, which I'm sure most people are familiar with. We have 1,000 stores across the U.S. and Canada. And then we also have another brand called Aerie, which is our women's lingerie and intimates brand. And I've been here for about 2.5 years, solely focused on building our social strategy and curating content and starting a blog for us and building out a team. We now have a social media team of 5 people, including myself. So we are lucky for a rather large team. And prior to American Eagle Outfitters, I worked for Cirque du Soleil in Las Vegas, where I started the social media program there. And I think it's definitely a big difference coming from the circus to a retail company. But
I don't know why that would be.
Yeah, but definitely when it comes to social, it's still, like, no matter what type of business, it's like the same core principles apply. It's really about engaging your customer and your audience. So even though it's a different industry, it's still following the same basic guidelines for social strategy.
So Jessica, did you brought a lot of that knowledge that you had built up at Cirque du Soleil, because that's where I actually first met you, was through that channel. Did you bring a lot of that over to you to American Eagle Outfitters?
Definitely, because it's the same for every industry. Like at Cirque, we were so lucky to have such passionate fans who really loved our shows and engaged with us in social media to talk about their experiences at the shows. And it's the same at American Eagle. Is people are so passionate about jeans. You know, it's like when you have the pair of jeans that fits you well, like you're just like so happy to talk about it and excited to talk about it. So it's definitely a different type of passion, but still just engaging that customer to talk about their love of the brand.
Well, let's get into that a little bit more. So we obviously want to know how you, as the manager of your social media programs at American Eagle, how you kind of work social marketing and maybe just kind of your day-to-day activities. How do you approach it, and what things do you have to keep in mind as you're doing it on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. Like we're always planning a couple seasons ahead in retail, so we're looking at what the trends are going to be in an upcoming season. So same with social, we're always planning our social strategy in advance, but then, and it's like, what can we be doing different? How can we improve in the platforms that we're on? But then it's also really looking at the day-to-day community and how we're engaging with the community, how we're responding to them, how we're handling customer service inquiries. So that is probably the biggest part of our day, is just our one-to-one community management that we're doing.
So you guys use it for not only outbound, but you also do use it for customer service. How do you guys approach customer service?
Yeah, it's a huge customer service channel for us, because we're seeing more and more that people are taking to Facebook and Twitter versus calling an 800 number. And we want to make sure we're responding to everybody, whether they have a compliment or a complaint about a product or something that happened in store. So we really try to respond almost immediately. We're on Facebook and Twitter all day. And if it is something that we can't answer, then we escalate it to our customer service team to get in touch with the customer directly.
So you guys are the first line of defense as far as on the customer service?
We are.
And how is that?
And it's definitely.
Oh, go ahead.
It's definitely common themes that come through. Like a lot of the questions we get has to do with product sizing or a return policy. So most of the time we're able to answer them, but if we're not, then we escalate it.
How do you determine how you escalate that? Do you just, if it's something that you just can't answer right off the bat, you just send that over to customer service?
Yeah, if it's something that we feel needs a bit more of a personal response or something that doesn't fit in 140 characters or something that and luckily Facebook messages has been huge for us to be able to reply within messages to people on Facebook. And so our customer service team is also trained on Facebook, and so we let them know if we need something replied to within the channel.
Do you guys worry, because we've heard from some of our clients that they worry about having those customer service discussions on their social channels? Do you guys think about that at all, or do you guys try to move that quickly, kind of off the stream, or get it over to Facebook?
No, actually, yeah, we actually are happy to have it in the chain and to reply for the most part. because we want our customer to see that we are present, that we are listening, that we are replying. So unless it's a really serious issue, it's something a bit more serious than product quality or fit, or but most of the time we're happy to keep it on the page just so our customers aware that we're there.
Now, before we get into like your actual fan base, I wanted to ask another question of what are some of the obstacles and challenges that you kind of go through from the social media team as far as what do you have to look out for on maybe content that you're sharing or how you're interacting with your community?
Well, something that when it comes to content that we're always looking out for is just really, is it the right content? And it's taken us a while to find the right balance between promotional messaging. Obviously, we have sales and discounts and want to sell our product at the end of the day, but it's striking that balance between our promotions and then our branded content, that our fan is there for more than discounts, and we want to make sure that we're providing them with the content that they're engaging with, that they'll continue to engage with us in the future.
So you're not trying to just be a walking advertisement. You're trying to actually integrate stuff that they would find interesting too, outside of just
exactly.
Off.
But again, it's all about the balance, though, because as they are there for more than discounts, they also do want to see discounts, and that they're following American Eagle because they like the brand and they like shopping at the brand. So it's an added bonus to have discounts there as well.
So let's get into your Facebook presence. You have 8.2 million fans, which is a large audience.
Yeah, we have a huge number of fans, and but again, it's all about the engagement. And even though we have 8 million fans, obviously not 8 million are engaging, but it's how do we get as many fans to engage as possible.
And I thought this was interesting that your audience is not what I would have considered. I thought it would have been more U.S. based, but you have two large cities in Mexico, obviously.
Yeah. So, and this is too, some of these stats I put in here just because I think Facebook Insights really are so important for any business to truly understand who's following you in social media. And I think sometimes who you think your customer is, it's actually very different in social media. But for us, you can see 55% are between the ages of 18 to 24, which is our target market. So we have a significant number in the 13 to 17 range, which obviously American Eagle is a popular brand for high school students. But again, this is our target market, that's 18 to 24. So, and then 75% female is also interesting because it helps us steer our content to know that 75%, since 75% of our fan base is female, that we can have content that maybe has a bit more of a female focus to it. And then the top cities, again, from Facebook Insights, the interesting thing about this is we are a U.S. brand, yet we have 2 cities from Mexico in our top 3 cities, and we didn't even have a store in Mexico until February. We just opened a store in Mexico, so it's been there a month and a half. And so of these 8 million fans, 2 million are from Mexico, which is unbelievable considering there was no store. And we didn't even start shipping to Mexico. But we also knew when we opened our Mexico stores and started shipping to Mexico that having a really strong social media strategy for Mexico would be important since we already have the fan base.
Now let's go into that really quick because I noticed when I was doing a little research on American Eagle Outfitters is that you do have Facebook presence or pages available for some of your countries. I saw one for the Philippines, for Israel. What was the thought process behind that? Because we do have some of our audience that does have a more global audience itself, and was that a real kind of thought process of making it tailored for that specific region?
Yeah, we definitely wanted to have country-specific pages because um, just everything that goes along with it, like obviously the language. We want people, where we have a store presence, we should have a Facebook presence, but it should also be in that country's language. That the content should be geared towards that country to make it more relevant. And something we are in the midst of doing is transitioning these country pages on Facebook to a global page on Facebook, which Facebook launched not too long ago. So that way, if somebody from the Philippines is searching for American Eagle, they automatically land on the Philippines page as opposed to the American page.
Yeah, so it's more
So
like
again,
like the way Google runs it, so it knows where your IP
yeah,
address is coming from.
yeah, exactly. So it just makes it more relevant for the customer.
That's awesome. Well, let's go into a little bit more about your guys' content and how you guys do it. Let's talk about your other brand. How do you get results from sharing information like this?
Yeah, so this is just showing just some of the content that really works for us, and it took us a while of just testing and learning with different content to see what resonated with our customer. But something we found success with Aerie is having a weekly cadence, and it's been interesting that we have a thing called Wednesday Wisdom on Aerie on Wednesdays, where it's just an inspirational quote, and it's the most popular thing we post all week, more than anything else. It has obviously shares are really important to us. How many people are sharing the content we're posting? So many shares, and it's just a simple piece of content, but it resonates with our customer. It just speaks to our customer, and if we don't post it by noon on Wednesdays, we have questions asking where it is. So I think it's important that we do have that, and because of that, on Wednesdays, we know people are paying attention to our page because they're looking for this Wednesday wisdom, and so we also try to post any important product messages or sales info on Wednesdays as well.
So
and then this
let me just interject. You're not only simplifying the content that you're sharing, but you're being consistent on when you're sharing that, so your audience starts to get into that groove and know.
Yeah, they know when to look for it, because if that content, if it is useful for them or they really enjoy it, they will seek it out. And that's the same with we have a Woe of the Week on Thursdays on Aerie, which is we just have an employee pick their favorite product that week and ask different people in the organization. And same thing, like people look for this on Thursdays. It's interesting that our sales associates in store have told us that they actually look to see what the Woe of the Week is on Thursdays and use it as their selling tool that in stores, because they'll say this was our Woe of the Week and speak to that product in stores. So because of that, we're now actually bringing Woe of the Week into stores, where we'll showcase that product. We're featuring on Facebook in stores with its own display every week.
That's awesome. So here's some of obviously the content you share on your Facebook page. What is the thought process that goes in, especially when you're sharing photos? Because we know that photos obviously gain some of the highest levels of interaction on Facebook pages. What is that thought process that goes into sharing photos?
Well, photos for us, we've found that our photos with real people, whether it's real customers or employees, get so much better engagement than the photos we were posting of just our models and our clothing. So we really try to do a lot of photos with our employees, because we think our fan, first of all, they like the product, and second of all, they like having this insider look at the company and just feeling like they have like this sneak peek into what goes on behind the scenes and who's behind the scenes of the brand. So that's why we've seen things like this do so well for us when it comes to photos.
So they can really tell the difference between the models and just your your
Yeah,
average employee.
and I'll get into that a little bit later about our UGC strategy,
Okay.
but yes, they definitely know the difference, and it's interesting that Cassie, who's actually on the right on this photo, she is the community manager for American Eagle, and the fans know her now, and they know her by name, and they know she's the one who writes the blog posts, and that she's the one tweeting.
So you're
So
actually building a community. I mean, you're not just talking about building a community.
So they get exactly. So for them to get to see the face behind the brand and social.
So that would be another, I think, tip that we brought into here is bringing in the actual human element of the company into your social presence.
Yep, exactly.
And so now we go to another photo of the clothes themselves. What give us a little background on that?
Yeah, and like I said before, it's like, why do people like your brand? And people like our brand because of product. And for American Eagle, the number one thing for engagement for us is product, and it's photos of product more so than anything else. I think a lot of brands get a little distracted, and we are guilty of it as well, to try to be interject a lot of lifestyle elements into their content, whether it's like check out this cool band or a particular video. And we always have to come back and think about, why does our fans follow us? Why are they there? They're there because they love our product. So we need to show them our product. And so, again, you can see like this one, when I screenshot it, was over 5,000 likes, which is huge for us. So it's like back to basics.
I think your fans like pink.
Yeah. Pink is in for spring.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
So here's a couple little different takes on this. You want to just kind of riff on this a little bit?
Yeah, this is just showing some of the other things that we do post. Like I spoke to a little bit earlier, is the promotion, but it's, again, finding that right balance. Like here you can see some of the promotional posts we have. We do some Facebook advertising, and you can see below is a Facebook offer ad, which perform really well for us.
21,000, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's huge. But again, it's finding that right balance and making sure when we do offer a promotion that we're presenting it in a relevant way to the customer. And images are really important for us when it comes to promotions, because previously we used to just post it in a status with nothing else, but obviously receive such higher engagement when we have good creative to go along with the message.
And how do you come up? I mean, obviously, some of our clients don't have that ability to have a creative team. Is there anything that you guys do on your own that's not using the creative team that's, I guess, simpler to do than?
Yeah, like that Wednesday Wisdom I showed previously. I mean, that's really just our team. Like, we mocked up a background and put it in a fancy font. You have
to buy a fancy font.
There are lots of fancy fonts for free.
Okay.
And so it is simple to create something it's just how do you make it more visual in the feed, because it's so hard to stand out in Facebook right now.
Right. It's hard to get above the noise.
Yep.
So in the next thing, I want to, you talked about this a little bit, but I want to go a little bit deeper on, is there actually, what kind of thought process goes into balancing that brand promotion versus the, just great content that people want to not only engage with, but also, more importantly, obviously, is sharing that content. Do you guys sit down as a group, as a team, and really kind of talk through that, or is it just something that's just been ingrained in how you guys approach social?
Now it's been ingrained, but it's been interesting. Like, some of our other best content that I didn't show in here is actually looking at content that users are already sharing. Like, for example, we saw lots of people were sharing photos of themselves on vacation wearing American Eagle. And we started asking for people to send us those photos. And again, it became something really popular we were posting every week. Is we just started posting user-generated content called Where Is My AE Been? It's just photos, travel photos of our customers. And that actually was the base for some of the bigger campaigns that we do, which I'll get to in a minute. And looking at this slide real quick, it's something else that's really important is how can we utilize Facebook to drive traffic other places. So we wanted to, here's this top post is, we want to drive traffic to our blog. People are not just coming to our blog to read it as much as we wish they were. And so Facebook and Twitter are huge tools for us to get people to see longer form content about our brand.
And then, real quick, Jess, on those two particular networks, Facebook and Twitter, do you have any idea how much traffic that is actually pushing to either the AE.com or your blog?
To our blog, it is pushing, I'd say, 90% of the traffic we receive.
Oh, that's a big number.
So it's huge for us. Yeah, like I said, the very few people are just coming to the blog to read it. The majority are coming because they see something we post in social that sounds interesting to them and clicking through for that article.
Because I think that's where a lot of people lose it, is they don't realize that is a traffic driver. They put a lot of content on there, but it's kind of closed in. There's no way for them to get from Facebook or from Twitter, over to where you really want them to go to try to drive sales.
Exactly, and like obviously our site, I have on here like that we're driving. We want to drive traffic to our site. I mean, that's the end goal of a lot of the content is how do we get the traffic to our site to shop and to look at the product. And then Instagram is really interesting for us. We actually just surpassed the number of Twitter followers we have on Instagram. So Instagram is our second largest social network behind Facebook now. And we really drove the majority of our Instagram followers by always pushing to Twitter. So Instagram is, again, it's just a huge branding channel for us.
And how is, speaking of Instagram, how is Pinterest working into this equation also?
Yeah, so Pinterest, I didn't include anything in here, but Pinterest is a great tool for us, and it has become a huge traffic driver to our site. It's usually in the top 3 in terms of social traffic to our site.
That's awesome. Well, let's get into this UCG and co-creation that you were alluding to earlier.
Yeah, so I was talking about our Where's Your AE Been, and how people loved submitting photos to us. It was totally grassroots. We just had an email address, asked people to send photos to social@ae.com, and started receiving hundreds of photos. So we knew our customer, there was a desire for that. We also knew that our customer, as I mentioned before, they loved engaging with these photos of real people and not necessarily photos of our models. So we started a campaign called Live Your Life, where you could win a chance to be the face of American Eagle, where we would no longer use models. And this is taking a look at the campaign and how it looks. It's very Pinteresty in terms of design, but you can come create your profile, submit your photos, and just talk about how do you live your life, and why should you represent American Eagle and be the next face of American Eagle. And it's been such a successful campaign for us that we now do it twice a year. We actually just wrapped up. We're in the process of the voting is happening right now for the the finalists. So you have until midnight tonight to make your vote for who should be
last minute push
in the next campaign. But it just goes to show like the power of social, and that now we're even have changed our marketing because of what our customer is talking about and engaging with in social media.
So not only is the content being generated by the users, but then the users actually get to vote on who they want to see as the next face?
Yep. Yes, and then it's also when the campaign actually comes out, our customer recognizes the people who are in the campaign because they either voted for them or participated. They submitted their photo to participate in the campaign.
That's awesome. So that's been some great information. Do you think that a lot of these tactics could be used for a mom and pop shop, you know, a boutique or a restaurant, or, you know, someone that's got their own business, their entrepreneurial business? Could you use this stuff?
I definitely do. Definitely do. I think it comes down to content and really finding the right content for your audience. It's like, why are they there to follow you? Why do they like your brand? Why do they want to engage with your brand? And taking a look at the content you're posting. It's a lot of testing and learning, but the content that is successful and is receiving a lot of likes or comments, how can you expand on that content and make it bigger, take it to the next level? Or is it something that worked well and can become something you're posting weekly? Like for example, if you're a restaurant, it's like, what's the most popular dish on the menu? Is that something where you can share the recipe or show a video of how it's made? It's that like inside look into the company that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Yeah, just to riff a little bit more on that, I have a friend that, you know, both of our friends, Justin Levy, that started in the restaurant business. That's what they did was they would take a video camera into the kitchen and they would show how their most popular dish was made, and then they would put that up on YouTube, and they got so much engagement on that because it was real people telling real information that was pertinent to their audience.
Yep, exactly. So that's it. It's like always like before you post, it's thinking about, is this interesting and is it relevant to the audience? Does this make sense for the audience that follows us in social media? Because again, that audience actually might be slightly different than who your customer is walking in the doors.
Yeah, as we found from your insights, it wasn't who I thought it was going to be. So I would take a look at that first before you start to go and use some of these tactics.
I think it's great that Facebook Insights gives you that much information. I think any of our...
we should probably take a look at that, shouldn't we, Jill?
Yeah.
You mean our own insights?
Yeah.
No. Haven't you done that?
I joke.
Yeah.
So here we get to the fun part. Are there any, you know, tips or tricks that you could share with our audience that you utilize on a daily basis? Maybe it's a tool or, you know, some kind of way that you approach some aspect of your social media that they might be able to utilize today.
Yeah, I think my big tips and advice are just that we've found success with are being present, and I think it's the number one rule with social media is just to be present. And even if you don't have great content to post right away, or it's just show your customer you're there and that you care. And the beauty of that is you don't need any fancy tools to do that and to manage that. But then after that comes the content development and curating really meaningful content. And then third would probably be creating a synergy across all platforms. And each channel is unique. So how approaching each channel a little bit differently. How can you change up your content? Your audience might vary from channel to channel. And and then also with synergy, it's like you can tell this really cohesive story at the same time. And so if people are following you on more than one platform, they're getting just additional information and insight into the brand. But as for particular like platforms and anything, I can't say we use anything too fancy. Like I mentioned, Facebook Insights is really key for us. Twitter has great insights as well. If you do advertising within Twitter, which actually does not require much budget, it's an interesting platform to just test advertising. But again, great insights as to who your fan is and then also who the content resonates with.
Do you guys use Google Analytics, I'm assuming, just because you noticed, obviously, how much traffic is being sent to your blog? So
Yeah, we actually use Omniture.
Okay.
And then our blog is a WordPress. Is hosted on WordPress, and we just use a plugin, an analytics plugin there. So really simple and easy.
So you're not spending a lot of money on some fancy tools. You're just really kind of doing the bare bones.
No, we're not. I mean, yeah, we really don't use much. We use Radian 6 to take a look at sentiment and just volume in social media, but I would not even say that's a tool that's necessary for a lot of companies.
Right.